Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another wonderful day of Valorant Challengers North America. Fun matches yesterday, including one that went the distance, and two more on our main broadcast to be ending off the week. I'm Sierra, joined by Dan again, and Roy. Roy, how are you doing? Did you get to watch the matches yesterday? Because those were top notch.
Do you drink water, Sierra? I don't know. Like it's crazy out here.
Crazy.
Yes, of course we watched the matches. I was actually streaming doing the watch party on my stream. And it was fun. I can't lie. Listen, VCL has never been more exciting. I think the viewers, the metrics, everything's pointing to just like this massive interest in VCL, and it's honestly really exciting to be here and watch these matches.
I mean, the roller coaster is 100% right. And Dan, we talked about, especially before that last series yesterday, we thought it was going to be close. Then it looked like it wasn't going to, and then it was close. Like it was all over the place, but it was a fun time.
Yeah, it's been really good. Like Roy was saying, a lot of teams or matches that you don't really know what way they're gonna end up going. So that's what makes it so interesting. And a lot of new names, a lot of new teams we're starting to get to know a lot more. And today I'm so excited. We have such a good match.
Oh, I know
Love that.
you are. I know you are. Pulling up the bracket so we can talk a little bit more about what is going to be happening for today as we recap what happened yesterday as well. Of course, this is the second day and there is side broadcasts as well. So make sure to be checking out those watch parties for all of those other streams. But yeah, we're going to be looking at one of those more winning matches at Cubert Academy going up against SAD, and then we'll have the opportunity to be checking in with Shopify Rebellion Black versus Core. And Roy, across the board, these all should be really, really fun matches to watch. The TSM versus Trust and Plug also should be a banger.
Yeah, I think the one thing we are absolutely learning in this split is the fact that the competition is really high. Like it's really impossible to know who's really going to win. And you're honestly just, if you think you're going to have high prediction rate, you might as well just flip a coin at this point because it's probably going to be more accurate.
Is that what you've been doing with your predictions? Be honest.
Yeah, let's just say I have a new strategy. I flip a coin and decide if I'm right, I'm actually just a genius. And if I'm wrong, well, I just flip the coin. So haha, you know what I mean? So it's actually can't lose. It's like a win-win from where I'm sitting.
Winning mentality, you know, I respect that, but we'll see if at the end of the day you're a genius or just lost its coin flips. But for now, let's start talking about our very first match of the day. Cubert Academy going up against SAD Esports, and this should be really, really fun. Of course, both of these teams did win last week. Awesome stuff. But specifically looking at this Cubert Academy, I mean, this was already something that we were talking about yesterday, Dan. There's a lot of excitement for this team. I know you're excited for it too. And that excitement is all warranted.
Yeah, everybody's taking a look at what this team is capable of doing in Challengers. Obviously, is like the Sentinels Academy with the Redux. And then, I mean, you look at this roster and it makes sense why people are so hyped. But I mean, they are not only performing in terms of, okay, well, is the Sentinels Academy team, everybody's keeping an eye because of the org. It's like they did the Fnatic on their match. What happened? It was a 3-11 on that map of Pearl, and they turned it around and they won, and they got that revenge win against Ambrosia. So they're not only exciting to watch because we know the players, because we know the org, but they're also really exciting to see get plays in games like this.
And I think this is an amazing roster on paper, right? You have three insane young talent, right? You have a Bazoomer on the roster, that's Nismo, and then you have a hardworking IGL who's supported by Dapper, a former competitor, and he's been competing in FPS esports for like what, a decade now, and he's still like in his mid-20s. So like even the coaching staff is super experienced, veteran experience, but they're also super young. And I think that's kind of the recipe for greatness, right? It's like you have this upcoming talent, you combine it with an experienced, hardworking IGL, and you have a really good support player that can also pop off at any point with Nismo. And then suddenly you have this amazing, what could be a mission or meal. Reality of this roster has been slightly underperforming. I'm sorry, I said it.
Wow. Okay. I mean, hey, give it time, especially too when we're looking at this roster. It's important to note that there's a different thing we should be looking at with this roster, which is this isn't a team eligible for ascension. We're looking at the development of the players. We're looking at these young talents looking to prove what they got to be ready for that tier 1. And of course, the conversation then has to be Redux, because Roy, this is somebody that even in the past years, like, there has been a lot of talk about, and this team, he was the one to form it. He's the captain here. This is the Redux show for this.
Absolutely. I mean, for rightly so, right? He's super flashy. He's super young. And I think if it wasn't for his age, I'm fairly confident he would be in VCT right now, to be honest. So I think this is just a development for him, an opportunity for him to just like hone his skills, bring up his teammates, all of them kind of integrate together, and then hopefully by the end of the split or by the end of the year, they're looking really good to challenge that Ascension slot.
Yeah, this is somebody that if you have not been paying enough attention to challengers and you're just like, okay, well, who am I looking at to cheer on next year in tier 1? Reduxes should be at the absolute top of your list. So do not be fooled by that whatsoever. So super exciting to be able to see that roster that he's built and is captain of. So I'm curious then to how the identity of that's going to be.
Yeah, and I think with Redux on the roster, it's really easy to overlook some of the other players on this team as well, right? Like Knightsy, super young, super talented. Scuba, a former, I mean, I say former, but he was signed recently. He's also a star player controller, so super cracked. So they have players in the duelist role that are super cracked. They have cracked sentinels and they have super cracked controllers. Like it's a conversation is just hard to just pinpoint one thing to focus on. But we do have to move the conversation to T-Dog, I think, the newest IGL on the roster, sort of the big brains of the operations. And I think he's been performing pretty well as well.
100%. I love too that Dan's cat's running away, knowing that
Don't
we're
worry
about to
it.
talk
It's not
about
like I'm holding her so
T-Dog
she
next.
doesn't go on camera.
Oh, it's
That's
you
not
this time?
happening.
Yes, it's not me.
That's not happening right now.
We see a cat, we have to acknowledge the cat. But it's the cats and dogs out here. Gotta talk about T-Dog because yeah, you're talking about IGL for the team, and T-Dog is somebody that we gave a lot of props to last year. And we did get to see him kind of shuffle, play on a different team then for stage 3. Now being brought along into this roster. So Dan, this is somebody who's already proven a lot. And now with a team of very like all this fresh talent that we expect a lot out of, and this veteran talent that still can prove they got what it takes, being able to lead this squad should be great.
Yeah, T-Dog is a player that we know very well for last year, and I mean, he's always been one of the biggest names that we have in Challengers. Previously played for TSM, for Core. I mean, we've seen him across a bunch of different teams. I still even remember 99 Strength. That was a whole thing that happened too.
We're throwing back.
Just going back in time a little bit. I saw the name and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing that happened.
Yeah, well, you just brought up my trauma because he actually knocked my team out of the VCL the first VCL qualifier. So thank you for that, Dan Dryad. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. 99 strength. Feels bad.
Man. Okay, I'll give Roy a moment to recollect himself. We'll move on from T-Dog and start talking about Cubert Academy's opposition for today and talk about the CUB Esports. This was a pretty close match that we got to see them play going up against Core last week, but it's a CUB Esports with a similar core to what we witnessed last year, Dan, and a core that is still working out for them.
It is something that we saw just in the first week. I mean, now we're getting the chance to see these teams on the main broadcast now a few times. And we talked about where they came from. We talked about Benji, for example. Just in the first week. I mean, now we're getting...
I don't know if it's my Discord that's absolutely throwing a fit or if it's Dan's or what's going on here. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna keep trucking on and pretend that it's not the Canadian internet here. But yeah, the CUB Esports, it was a close match last week, Roy, and there's a couple different people to talk about for that. But first up, I know we wanted to talk about Zerona specifically.
Yes, I think Zerona is the player on this roster that can so easily go under the radar, but considering the fact that he's playing in this like very flex supportive role and still putting up these numbers is absolutely insane. KDA 1.6, 144 ADR. I mean, this player is a beast. And not only that, Sierra, but this player, his first kill, first death ratios on that supportive role is almost a statement in itself to the level of impact this player is having on this roster.
100%. And I'm glad that we got to see a lot of that impact coming in from last week, as unfortunately we've lost Dan right now. But no, when we had such a close match as we had last time, being able to see how he was able to set up the team, I feel like when we got to see this team come together, the teamwork, Roy, was something that we, I at least, I can't speak for you, I complimented the team on a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a big fan of these players for a while. I think their performances from the previous splits have shown their growth, and I think this is potentially their year to really display their ability and display their potential. And honestly, to talk about it as well, I think we're sort of entering Act 2 of the Valorant metas, right? Act 1 was just like the superstar player, set up one player, you know, like kind of like feed all the resources to this one player for them to pop off. But I think we're sort of entering this like new era of Valorant where like every role now has to step up. There really isn't just like one role take all kind of systems anymore that are like functioning at a super high level. And I think this is one of those rosters where it's like it's really hard to point to one factor for their success or for their losses, considering how well each of these players perform and to the level that they perform at. So it's really impressive to see, and I think there's potential for them to really catch us all by surprise.
I love that you called out everyone being able to step up, because that was something that Furbza actually called out in last week as well after speaking to him when we got to see a big step up coming out from their Sentinel in that final map. But talk more about Furbza and the performance he was able to put up on across the series, but specifically the first two. When we're talking about, I mean, everyone has to step up, of course. But something we've talked about a lot in Challengers so far is these duelists just across the board. Roy, we've had a lot of duelists that have really been able to show their capability. Of course, when they're able to be set up, that's all fine, all grand. But like, I don't know, it's a tough competition for which is like the best duelist out there right now.
Absolutely. And I love like we're talking about feeding the support, feeding the duelist players and having them set up. But the clips that you see is just completely just like, look at him. He's just kind of just boosted, doing his thing, getting all the kills, looking super flashy. He has literally almost no support in any of these clips. So that goes to show you that he is a pretty cracked player, I would say, Sierra.
100%. He can get it done on its own. But Dan, welcome back. Welcome back. Cracked duelist Furbza.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Furbza now that everything is good on this side. We had conversations on the first week when we got the chance to see Furbza about, you know, how good he is. Obviously, a name that we know very well in Challengers, but I feel like I still had a couple of doubts looking for consistency, looking for, I mean, how much can you do, just because the competition for duelists is specifically it's so hard. I mean, that's why we're seeing duelists from NA in EMEA. We used to see them in Pacific with Narrate. They're going everywhere because they're so good. And perhaps that kind of was that question for me. I think that first week it made me feel a lot better. As Rory was saying, we highlight the support that goes behind the duelist, but so many of those times, Furbza is able to frag out by himself, and that is something that, you know, this team needs.
100%. And while we're on the topic of duelists and looking for that consistency from Furbza, we have to put him head to head here going up against Redux. Because, of course, if we talk all of this talk about the duelists, we have to see how they walk the walk. But Roy, for as much props as we've given Redux throughout this, looking at this side by side, the same Furbza phrases even more here.
Dude, you actually read my mind. Like the amount of credit and respect that Redux gets in the scene, but then you put him up, you know, to a player like Furbza, who's mewing pretty hard and he's kind of mogging us in his picture. But like, look at his stats. He's not only mogging us in the picture, but he's mogging us in the stats as well. 1.8 KDA, 150 damage per round, 2 clutches. I mean, the guy can play almost every single duelist. They can play Jet, he could play Raze, he could play any the Yoru as well. I mean, same for Redux, obviously. So we're looking at 2 super young, super cracked duelists going head to head in this matchup. I mean, let's say worst case scenario, this is the worst match we've ever watched, which I guarantee it's not going to happen. This head to head will at least be very entertaining for us to watch.
I think it's more eyes on and the pressure that Redux and the rest of that side of Cubert Academy have. I'm looking at, I get it, Roy. I get it that it's like, okay, we talk about so much about Redux, but when you look at the stats, it looks a little bit closer. But yeah, I think it was just that match with Ambrosia that you had other players kind of having their moment, having their chances to pop off. But when I'm looking at this head-to-head, I'm looking at Redux. I think he's incredibly consistent. I mean, that is the reason why he got picked up even before he could turn 18, right? Even before he could even play for Sentinel. So it's one of the pieces that is going to be a difference maker, and is going to be a good test for the other side as well. What can you do around this guy that if he wants to be annoying, get 3Ks every single round, you know that he's going to.
I mean, I'm just remembering having seen Furbza in matches where we get to see something more like the Sentinel, see the Cypher coming out, and just the clutches and the consistency he was able to have there. So I think both duelists so worthy of the praises there. But it's not just the duelists. Even if the duelists can, of course, get this all done by themselves, Roy, we have to talk about people that can set them up, and talk about 2 people who we haven't yet had the opportunity to talk about yet, but Scuba and Tuzi.
Yep. I mean, like I said, Act 2 Valorant, we're entering the star player roles in these off roles, right? Scuba's stats honestly do not do him justice in this picture, but if you look at their last match, he was actually one of their top performing players, and one of the main reasons why they even were able to close out the series in the 2-0 fashion. So Scuba's not being done justice here, but I think he's a very valuable player to this roster, not only in terms of mechanics, but in terms of his risk versus reward assessment, his willingness to step up and sort of be the hero whenever the round is required. And it looks like he really has no fear. And whenever he's needed to sort of pop off to kind of clean up what his team isn't able to achieve early in the round, you're looking at Scuba to kind of do that for them.
100%. And Scuba's been somebody too that's been at the top of our praises throughout last year and such. So be able to see how this head-to-head is going to transpire will be awesome. But I want to start talking about the series that we have going on for today's match and start talking about the map picks and bans. Of course, with week 2, we got a little bit more knowledge of how these teams are feeling on certain maps and what we got to see coming out from week 1. And I think that's especially exciting heading into the very first map of the series. Try not to spoil it before we get the graphic up for map picks and bans, but maybe a little spoiler. Oh, there we go. Dan, it is Fracture, picked by CUB Esports, and they demolished Core here last week.
Yeah, this is an interesting map pool because I was wondering, you know, we talked about the Fracture, the Pearl, even the Haven to close it up, but Pearl is where I'm keeping my mind of, just because of that comeback that we saw. And I think yesterday was a test of, okay, we want to talk about improvements from teams from week 1 to week 2. We got to see that Shopify Rebellion Gold have some great moments on this map when they struggle in week 1, but then it was kind of a momentum thing that they could not get again. So now for that 3-9 half that Cubert Academy have, what are the improvements? What are the changes? What are you going to make sure to not do again, especially if it's that defense side for CUB coming through first?
Yeah, now honestly, I feel like at least on the side of Cubert Academy, they seem to be performing very well on their attack sides. It's really only the defense side that they seem to be sort of struggling to get things rolling. And maybe it's just like a lack of reps, or maybe it's just like kind of people settling into their new roles and into their new play styles, right? You're kind of getting players from many different rosters sort of put together at the last second. So I mean, I imagine there's still a little bit of, you know, things that are under construction, but I think overall the way Cubert Academy is approaching the game isn't that bad. It's actually really good. They just need to tighten up on their defense side, and I think they'd look pretty good.
That's what's nice about that time, and especially too with the different expectations that we talked about for this team in comparison to any other team that, of course, you don't really have that luxury of time. You need the wins, you need the points, you need to make sure you're in the best spot possible. But again, looking at Fracture, this was strong for Core, but looking at Cubert Academy here, Roy, I don't really mind them here either.
Oh, for Cubert Academy's side, yeah, I think this is honestly, my intuition says this is a good map pool for both of these teams. So I think we should see at least a pretty good matchup. Obviously, Fracture and Pearl were the only 2 maps that Cubert Academy played last week. And it's really the only maps that footage exists on what they're up to and what their game plan is. It really, the only big question mark for them is once we go to that third map, if we go to that third map, it's going to be kind of like what kind of comps are they running? What meta have they leaned into? And how are they approaching the maps?
And I want to see too, I mean, we talked about the second map, we talked about even if he goes to that decider, because it is a match that you see the results last week and you see kind of what the teams have been doing recently, and you see it being a kind of a back and forth between the two. But that first map of Fracture is what catches my attention too, because you talked about the sides and the strengths on the sides, right? But Roy, they're running the side of Cubert Academy. They're running with this composition with the KO. Is going to be with the KO and the breach, and it's going to be heavy as well on the post ones when you're having a Scuba that is constantly playing disaster. I think is everything that he played last week. So one of those little things to pay attention to for what these teams are opting for in terms of compositions. I mean, last week it was against a Terror that they had to deal with that. This week, I mean, things could change.
I mean, if we're seeing the KO2 coming up from Cubert Academy again, Nismo just had a performance and a half on that. He always pops off when he's on the KO. Yeah. So that's an extra that's an extra layer to everything else that CUB Esports have to be worrying about. But heading over to our predictions, I didn't flip a coin. I'm standing by my predictions and how I think this is going to be going down. I think with the strength of the team at Cubert Academy, Dan, no surprise. Roy, I think your tail flip might do you wrong here, bud.
Listen, I will happily stand against the grain, as they say. Okay, I will be the black sheep of this predictions. And if I'm right, then I'm right. And if I'm wrong, well, it's Caster's curse, the reverse Caster's curse. So you guys are welcome either way.
It's so you don't curse them because we're all voting Cubert Academy.
Exactly.
Right. The genius.
I'm glad we're aligned. Thank you.
All right. I mean, Dan, I don't know about you, but I think it was, yes, they had a close series versus Ambrosia for the first 2 maps, but I think this roster, once they heat up, I think it's going to be one of the top contenders, no doubt, here in Challengers. So I think my vote's pretty clear there.
I'm just gonna say, barely any teams ever can come back from a 3-11. That's why we remember that Fnatic lap so well. And now we will remember that Cubert Academy, Ambrosia, and Challengers for the rest of time. It really is a hard thing to do. You need so much confidence to make it happen, and on top of that, such a elaborate playbook to get away with a comeback like this one, where the other team wins the pistol, you think it's over, they're up to 11, and then you start winning round by round. I mean, we've seen attempts so far in the main broadcast by other teams, but it's hard to close it out. Yeah, the fake comebacks, we've seen a lot of those.
A lot of those.
You gotta keep it interesting, you know, on the roller coaster that is Challengers so far. Do not get me wrong, but then that brings up the question. There's a Cubert Academy that's been able to have the mental to make that run there, going up against the NA Esports that have obviously have a lot more tenure as a team all put together. So, Roy, especially with you going up against the grain, how do you think they're going to stack up? I know there was talks of maybe not a map 3 in the series. Do we think it's going to be a Cubert 2-0? Like, how do we think it really stacks up?
Honestly, I stand by my opinion that anything could happen, like at any point in time with any team in this league. I think the competition is tight. I think all the talent's really capable, and I think, you know, this is where magic happens. And I'm here for the show. I'm here for the entertainment, and let it go however it goes.
All right. Well, all good entertainment needs some popcorn. So quick break from us due to a player crash, but we're going to be right back with a great match. So don't wander off too far.
Honestly, it's great because last year this team formed with, we have 4 players from our old team, and that team kind of fell apart. And then towards the end of the year, we came back together, and we're back as like 4, and we picked up Nanners as our new 5th. And it's really like rewarding to see all the hard work that we put in, from like playing like tier 3 events and Premier, like pay off, and finally we qualified for Challengers. And then we had a big upset as well, the first match. So that was very big for us and very motivating. Well, we definitely had some issues with roles with this guy because we have basically 3 Senti players, 3 people who play Senti. Me, Nanners, and Alvin were originally all Senti players. So we had to figure out roles pretty fast because we weren't scrimming for a while, and then we started scrimming halfway through January. So we had to figure out roles fast, but I think he's been an upgrade as far as like vibes and comms. Like he's very, like he's always one like cracking jokes or saying something funny. Like he's always there keeping the vibes up, never complaining, never really saying anything to ruin the mental. Honestly, from the match that we've played so far against Shopify Black, I would say it's a lot different. Like they were way more organized and structured with how they played, which was kind of like a double-edged sword. Like it made them a little bit predictable at times, whereas in tier 3, like you'll never expect Pickle Spear to swing through a smoke and get 2 and just be by himself while the rest of his team's at A. Whereas these guys, they're kind of playing more together, they're trading better. So I mean, there's pros and cons to both. Honestly, I mean, we started the year with a big upset. I would say that a lot of people weren't expecting us to be competition. So just expect the unexpected, right? Like we're gonna show up, we're gonna play our game no matter who the opponent is.
Yeah, I mean the team's been great. I've been with them officially about 2.5 weeks now. So we haven't had much time together, but I think we are progressing at a really fast rate. You know, exceeding my expectations, honestly. Everyone's learning very fast. We're getting on very well. Our chemistry's looking good in game. We all get along. So I think I have nothing but high hopes for this team, and I at least want to be able to express my experience with this team. So obviously, I think me and Huen are probably the most the veterans of the team. So I think our experience is going to be able to lead these new players. Hopefully we can win the whole thing, right? So, and I think we can do that. I think this team looks very promising. It's been very, very good. I actually don't really feel like there's that much of a difference between challengers and the tier 1 side, because I mean, I think the skill level is, if you look at it like a range or like a scale, they're not that far off. And I think the only difference is how much time they're willing to put in, because of in challengers, there's not much backing support right now. So I think that's really the only difference in gap, but I think the skill level is pretty even, honestly. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. So we gotta set our goals, kind of, one step at a time. Right now, we're just looking to think of playoffs right now, since we are somewhat of a new team. But obviously, we want to be able to win the whole thing, make it to Ascension, win Ascension, and then we make it back in the league. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's everybody's goal. But also we got to take it one step at a time, not get complacent, and just make sure that we get our job done. Because we want to make sure, like I said, we make the most of it. So I think that's the way we got to approach it.
Everyone, thank you so much for your patience. It's time to get started with Cubert Academy going up against CUB Esports. So we talked about all the players, we talked about the map and how it's looked, and it's time now to talk about the agents. So Dan, we had talked about the Taeho versus the KO, considering they both won on this map last week. We'll have to see if we see a repeat of that today.
And yeah, it seems like that's exactly going to be the case. It's going to be sad once again opting for this Taeho composition, and once again obviously Furbsa on the Yoru. On the other side, Cubert Academy is going to go with Redux on the Raze, and that's one of the roles that he's the most comfortable in. So everybody kind of opting for what works for the team. It seems like we know Nismo for playing this KO for so long. So I want to see now a little bit more in detail in this main work as how he's going to implement it with what the team wants to do here.
I love that we got to highlight, Roy, the duelists going into this and being able to see the different approaches there too, with Furbsa there back on the Yoru.
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot of similarities in compensations that are happening, right? You look at Cubert Academy side, they have the KO and the breach for the flashes. Obviously, the CUB Esports is opting for the Taeho, so they get an extra drone, but they get the flashes back from the Yoru. And then, of course, the only thing they really lose is the raised paint shells, but you get that from Taeho's kit as well. So there really is a pretty kind of nice balance between both of these sort of compositions and sort of stylistically. I think really the only difference is that CUB Esports' comp is a lot more stalwart. They can hold down space and they can challenge space pretty hard with their early utility, whereas the Sentinel side, they're a little bit more information based.
I'm looking at as well, last week we saw a lot of Taeho, and we saw that most of the games where if someone was going and leaning into that pick instead, they normally had a little bit more of an advantage throughout the entire match. But last week, Cubert Academy, they did a really good job playing up against the Taeho, and it didn't let them stop them. So Roy, that's going to be something that I'm looking at as well going into this. They have the experience, they beat the Taeho. Does CUB Esports clear them in that aspect, or can Cubert take them down as well?
Yeah, I think statistically speaking, we touched on this last time, but it seems like the non-mirror matchups for Taeho seem to be pretty favorable for him right now. So I think teams that are running this agent are either one, they're getting a sort of head start, or maybe they're offering a different look that teams aren't that comfortable with, and they're kind of catching them off guard. So this, I mean, going into week 2, going into week 3, we're going to see the meta sort of settle in a little bit more, and we'll really start to understand whether is Taeho really the best pick right now possible, or are teams just kind of not, they're not really adjusted, or they're not really familiar with what he does in the moment.
Yeah, because when CUB Esports went up against Core and Core opted not to run it, Dip on this Taeho was just absolutely phenomenal. And honestly, it was just like the most obnoxious comp to go up against between that and the breach. It was fun to watch. Do not get me wrong whatsoever. If I'm up against it in the server, I would not necessarily enjoy that. So Dan, when we get into that match, even if there is a lot of compositional similarities, especially here with Sentinels starting on the attack, something that they are a bit better at, I'm wondering how much that Teo is going to be slowing them down.
I feel like it's not really going to slow them down as much, to be honest. I mean, again, Cubert Academy already played against this composition, and it's honestly a composition that we've seen a few teams play, obviously in officials, but I imagine in scrims to see it a lot more. And it's a Tejo that I really like for the post. I mean, obviously you can use that drone, get that info early on, but for the post, the timings are still kind of weird. And is like Roy was saying, we're still trying to figure out if this is an agent that is meta, it's really good, or it makes sense, or is more like the teams are just not used to how to deal with it, just because of that delay and how slow sometimes it takes for the utility to have any impact. So that is something that I think Cubert Academy is really not going to be struggling with. Again, I just want to, instead of having to deal with SAT Esports, I want to know how they're going to make this their own game with their own implementation of this KO that we don't really see as much.
See, the last thing that I'm looking at with these two teams is we never really talked about the Sentinels going into this, and Benji, the amount of first kills and just the hold that he had on Fracture last week was top notch. But then comparing that with Knights on the other end, Knights has been hailed as like this absolutely cracked, crazy kid that we're going to be one of the next top players, and someone that we haven't really gotten to see too much. Roy, last time we saw him was with Rangers, super performed there, so this is another chance to prove himself.
Yeah, I think Knights is one of those like players that you find in rank that you're just like, okay, this guy clearly passes the eye test. He's mechanically very gifted, and then now he's sort of starting to implement into an organized environment, into a high level strategic environment. And I think maybe there will be a little bit of adjustment period, but I mean, if his debut is a +1 137 ADR and you're 6-2 on your openers and the Sentinel role, I think he's off to a pretty good start. But guys, I do want to point out to one thing here for the Cubert Academy side is we see Scuba swapping off of the Astra. He was playing Astra before on the Fracture side. Now he seems to be opting back for the Brim. Obviously, the triple smokes that last longer are pretty good on this map, and it's probably the main reason why teams have opted for the Brim to begin with, as well as a very strong ultimate that is pretty versatile on both defense and offense.
That's definitely a great call out. And with Scuba being somebody that we've highlighted here too, and seeing that Brim's making a little bit more of a resurgent here on Fracture, that should be really, really nice to see. But there's enough talking about the game and theorizing what we can see here. It's time to head into it. Yet again, everyone, thank you so much for your patience. It's time now to head into your Fracture and go over to our casters, Tenric and Marks.
Thanks so much, Sierra. What a way to start off the day today, seeing two teams take on the game, emblematic of not only what we can expect from them going forward, but what we can expect of the meta and the game as a whole. Two-star duelists amplified by a team of not just people that can amplify their own kits, but can also hold their own. Again, the story of this new year of Valorant. If you're a gamer, you're an aimer, point blank period, no exceptions. Marks, SAT Esports, they certainly held their own against Core, a more defensively oriented team against the very attack-heavy Cubert Academy, held up by Redux on that front line. How do you think they are going to fare today?
Honestly, this is such a toss-up. I mean, you know, Roy was joking about it. Yeah, flip a coin, see which one is going to win. But there is something special about how SAT Esports was playing. If you tuned into the match where they went up against Core, you saw that they were bringing a lot of really good utility combinations, playing the Tejo extremely well, and already using those guided salvos to slow down that potential push. But the Cubes, they're going to be moving up here. It's going to be the speed already down as Knights is already lurking.
Well highlighted by the casters in the tail end of that agent select. Up next for sure, but Dip will be the first one to get blood this round. Ferbsa able to come back around to Arcade, and now it's a one-pronged attack, making Cubert Academy second-guess themselves with Nismo on very low health as well. Very little entry util at this stage. T-Dog, though, still a flash, and still that aftershock, too. Sad. We'll respread, prepare for the potential A rotation, but we're just heading under for now.
Yeah, Ferbsa is going to be the person right now to get that information. You're just watching from tower, spots them all out, so should at least be aware. And now you see SAT Esports, they're just going to anchor things out onto B. There is a little bit of a lurk from Benji, but given the fact that all that Cypher utility is still onto that A site, they'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on as while Sentinels are going to be rotating all the way over onto that A site.
Yeah, should get queued to this sooner rather than later, and Sad are already going to start backstepping through Canteen here to spawn. Get that alert sooner onto the drop wire, which Benji has placed nice and early here. Unsure of the presence, but with 20 seconds to go, it's pretty clear. Whole gang's here. They will disperse. Nismo heads back into main. Still some smokes active, though, so you're going to have to step out and retake this. Well, that's why T-Dog tried to dry clear, and now with the fault line active once more, it'll be Sad having to take this all together. Smokes fade away. Nismo will be the first line of contact outside of main as T-Dog again attempts to hide in this crevice, something he's oh so good at so far. This split doesn't even need to do it. Nismo finds the opening too without losing another sliver of health. And Benji, so much to do, so little time, so many people in your way. T-Dog, unfortunate timing for the one, but now you got to do it 2 more times. First with Nismo, just one shot. Does get half of the spike here. Benji keeping it nice and interesting, and Scuba can't get the headshots until now. Wrapped up, but no neat little bow. 1 player alive for Cubert's first round.
There was a second there where I was wondering what was going on, because you would have expected Cubert to, well, swing together, double push out there. That way you make sure that you don't give up the trade, but then they were kind of going just one by one, giving Benji a real opportunity for a potential swing back around. But all things considered, an excellent game plan coming out from the Sentinels Academy roster. Just immediately deciding to abandon that site and then move all the way on to the other side. Plenty of time to get themselves set up onto that crossfire. And so they do win out that pistol round. Into this next one, though, looks like Redux is going to be bringing in the heavy weaponry. We know that Cuberts, they like to play a little bit more fast, a little bit more flashy, and I expect to see Redux really being that tip of the spear and just fly through Sad's defenses.
And with Scuba switching up to the Brimstone as well off of that Astra, which he's really been trying to push on other maps as well, to be fair. Scuba's been one of the pioneers of Astra so far here in North America. I think the swap back to Brim is very much justified, though. The size of those smokes just cannot be denied, especially for such open doorways and chokes. And that, I mean, that stim is going to be so important for not just letting Redux in, but for letting the rest of your team in after that fact with all of these potential hurdles that you might have on this entryway. Sad have been quick for denial and not just post-planting, and that trend is going to continue this half.
And just on screen here, we've got the B stream a little bit open there. TSM up against Trust in Plug, and looks like the score is all tied up right now. I think, you know, we're talking about these 1-0 matchups because of the whole Swiss format of this tournament, and so many of these teams, like, it's really hard to predict which one of them are going to be these standouts, but this is really going to be the matchups that are going to help define how this whole Challenger season is going to be going.
Yeah, the seesaw is quite short at the moment, and TSM and Trust in Plug, 2 of the fulcrum pieces for that for sure. Been very exciting to watch their rosters develop. Obviously, Trust and Plug, one of the off-season beasts that just upset basically anyone they came across. They looked more prepared during the offseason than any of the teams that were developing in the offseason, go figure. And then meanwhile, TSM, yet another barrage of pickups of players even more out of nowhere this time, and they've done just perfectly fine for themselves. I don't know how they keep doing it.
I feel like that's just like the magic of TSM, where we always just see this reinvention of all of these different rosters. But I mean, hey, at the same time, Trust and Plug did beat the 100 Thieves roster. So,
that's true. That's the thing. I feel like you could hold that over someone's, oh yeah, but did you remember that Trust and Plug beat 100 Thieves that one time? We're going to be talking about that till 2028. Round 2 now for Cubert Academy on this attack half. Like you said, Redux with that hero rifle, but a lot more on the arsenal as we trot towards the B steps once more. It's Knights yet again on the one in arcade.
And looks like it should be pretty easy for Cubert to move in onto that B site. Sad have set themselves up onto that A site, going for that little bit of a gamble stack. But given the fact, too, that there isn't a lot of Benji's utility all over this site, then Cubert's got a lot of room to work with. Keep in mind, too, the way that Stad want to play this composition is you want to be extremely disruptive. You want to make it so much more annoying, so much more difficult for your opponents to be able to enter in onto the site. That's specifically going to be the Tejo as well as the Yoru. A lot of that utility is just meant for pure distraction, pure just mess on your screen. And given the fact that Cubert are going to be able to walk into the site fairly easily, it should be a pretty quick, easy take. I'm curious to see what their post plant's going to look like.
Yeah, like you said, Sad have to be the headlights and make Cubert the deer, and we got a pretty clean crossing here in this follow-up as Sad put all their eggs into the basket on drop and dish. They'll head out from that way now as the spike cleanly goes down. This is one of Cubert's more reliable plants because of, like you said, that barrage of util that these agents have. There's just so many different places to just hole up and bunker down.
And now we see the slow creep over. There is still a lot of utility in SAD's hands, so they will be able to disrupt a little bit, but they gotta capitalize off these kills as they make their way in, and Nismo in a great spot.
Yeah, a lot to dump on this, but you can't do it from that angle. Nismo's just gonna be able to poke his head up, but Ferbson will not only silence him, but Knights as well. An entire channel completely gone here, as Redux will have to save face on site with little time to go, though. Only one direction that SAD can go, and it's straight into the waiting arms of Scuba, who will grab 2 for himself. Cubert, clean 2-0-3 standing this time, and it's all rifles.
It was looking a little bit scary there for a second. I mean, talked about that disruption, SAD really using their utility well. And I think that this is something that SAD are really excelling at, where some of these other Challengers teams haven't quite figured it out yet. The Tejo combination off of the breach is so darn good and so disruptive, and you can see some of this starting to play into work. Of course, Ferbsa kind of going off there, but thankfully Scuba just watching that angle as well as Redux to make sure that no one really goes unscathed. They can carry these weapons forwards. This time around, Cubert, they're moving in nice and fast. Benji spotting him out first.
Very ambitious peeks from Vents, but if you have Zerona downstairs, makes it a little more secure. Benji will escape with 1 gone on the attacking side, but now stands alone on a B site that Cubert ready to attack. Knights yet again alone, but can only peek 1 angle. That'll get taken down. Benji now refrag, but it takes Redux's ult. It also takes the entirety of B-side. Cubert with the 3v3 now for the post plant. That being said, no util available for Nismo. Redux can only zone out for so long. Gotta play from way back, and look how far Scuba is, making sure there's no stragglers.
Here we go. The salvos are going to be back online, so they'll be able to get a little bit of space. Ferbsa ready to engage, has that flash in hand. Here they go.
First flash out from Ferbsa. Still got 1 more in the tank to take this secondary angle on top of this stun. Scuba's going to start lining up that molly just to make some extra space intangible for SAD. And it'll work out pretty well. Nismo the first to poke out. Ferbsa finally counters that, but the angles are very limited, and so is time. Dip will extend onto Redux, but this frag, this molly from Scuba in tandem is just too much. Ferbsa will not be able to do both of the jobs he needs to, and Cubert will get the 3rd in a row.
And that's an important one for Cubert to be able to pick up here, because that resets the SAD economy yet again. And quite frankly, I think that Sentinels have been doing a really good job at making sure that they're still controlling the space. My biggest concern with how we're going to be seeing SAD play it is pushing people away. A lot of that utility, like I've been talking about, is purely just, hey, this is a cool spot that you might like hanging out on. It'd be a shame if somebody exploded it, and then you have to reposition yourself into all of these awkward angles, which is when you want to see SAD move in. But so far, Cubert have been doing an excellent job at keeping that at bay, making sure that they're spreading out their players, and already it's very aggressive here.
This is something we have seen with these Tejo comps in its early days, just pushing up with these salvos to guarantee yourself an entire lane. And Cubert will decide to continue fighting this. Why not? You've got the better guns. You might as well go for it. Spray through from T-Dog to take down Benji as well. 4v4 here after that opening pick, but Ferbs has come around the back! And that's an easy 3 down. Finally enough time wasted on 1 forefront, and SAD have control of the spike, and no doubt the round from here.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a smart play from SAD on that defense. You use the salvos, you keep them out. Of course, we get to see Redux flying across, immediately just taken out, and that gives plenty of time for the Yoru to get that reposition. Guardian in hand, and you know Ferbsa is always going to be good with it. Finds the kills necessary. Now also the kill leader in the lobby with 8 kills just like that. SAD, they find themselves on the board. A couple of ultimates available for them as well. While Cubert, they should still have enough money on this round to be able to buy up here, but that is a good momentum boost for SAD Esports.
I find it so fun talking about Redux's ability to just push that front line. I mean, he's learned how to be an aggressive duelist for 3 years, and he's still not even 18 yet. But talking about Ferbsa, who exemplifies basically everything about duelists that isn't pushing better than anybody else in North America, the ability to stay put, the ability to flank, the ability to take that off angle is something that Ferbsa truly excels at on the duelist position. And just these off positions in these solo spots, SAD just trusts him to take them on, and he's gonna do it again. 4 down now for Ferbsa on this Yoru, and that's another spike dropped, isolated, and another Cubert member with so much that he has to get out of his sleeve if he wants a chance at this round. But with such an unstable economy, it's a question of what exactly Scuba can get out of this round, and at the very least, it'll be one more orb.
Yeah, and at this point too, given the fact that Scuba's got the ultimate online, just hold on to that rifle, stay alive. Please don't go across the ropes. We've seen that happen too many times where things go wrong. But what an excellent round from Sad. Ferbsa Nation rise. That was unbelievable play kind of going out there. Of course, we saw Tuzi be a little bit of that bait, but Sad are just doing an excellent job at keeping Cubert Academy in check. They're never really given an opportunity to even really engage on these sites. When they're able to get in, then they do an excellent job on their post plan. They do an excellent job setting themselves up. But Sad have just been kind of stopped at the door before it even opens a crack, just making sure that Cubert can't even really get through the main areas before, let alone even plant the spike. And Scuba at least able to find Ferbsa, a little bit of revenge for the rest of the team. But the position being known now, Scuba's got to be so careful in these next 15 seconds.
And this will be one of the biggest ways that Sad is able to continue getting rounds on Cubert is, like you said, being able to shut that door before they can fully open it. And it also, in a way, kind of puts a Band-Aid fix over one of Sad's bigger weaknesses that we saw in their last match was the initiator's proclivity to become aggressive when Ferbsa can't be. Zerona and Dip sometimes getting too ahead of the line and falling for it and not maximizing that util the way that other teams are able to. But luckily, Ferbsa has been so dang good they haven't had to overextend yet. And so we haven't seen that problem so far. If Cubert is able to, especially like poke through both sides, like if Knights is able to find a lot more space on one of those lurks, then we'll see a lot more Cubert targeting and exacting upon the players that need to fall first, so that Ferbsa will be forced to get in front of the problem a little more aggressively and thus lose so much of the power that we see him hold.
And this is interesting. You see the knife get tossed out onto that A site to give Sad the inclination that maybe this is going to be an A side hit. But once again, given that Cypher utility, the trips are going to be set up, the camera's ready to grow. Sad still should be aware of what's going on. And as soon as that bullet's fired, yeah, Sad have an idea on what's going on. And so we're going to be seeing Cubert now get themselves set up for this initiation, and they should be able to get the spike down. Let's see if they're going to be successful here.
Still managed to find the whole site. And Dip walled away to use the salvo or no. Will on the plant. Guessed right, wasted some time. Cubert now forced to fight at least a little bit. And Redux, the one to try and get it started before Sad can think about it. They will punish. And now have a 5v4 on the retake. Plus that dimensional drift that Ferbsa will use to take over the vents. There's one. And he won't go any further. We'll head down to steps instead. Just put the Tay-hole towards the tower. You don't need to clear anything else. Now that you know one's there, you don't care how many more are. And Zerona now has free reign as the rest of Sad extends onto site. Cubert, the one place that was Tay-ho ulted, is now the one place they get to reside, as Sad Esports will very safely get this defuse with smoke, player, anything but death in their way.
It's just like Sad have so much control over the site.
Let's do this.
It's unbelievable. I mean, obviously, yeah, sure, you've got a couple of ultimates to be able to toss out there. And to be fair, Cubert Academy, they were doing a good job being aware that that Armageddon was going to be online, putting themselves in the position to not get stuck in heaven. And still, though, it just worked out perfectly for Sad. They're able to completely zone Cubert out and take over the site. There wasn't even an opportunity for Cubert to re-engage with things, just with how much control Sad are oppressively throwing at Cubert Academy. So now we're all tied up 3-3. It was starting really good for Cubert, but now it's completely swung back around. Ferbsa getting aggressive here, able to find Redux.
That is a terrific walk up on top of that smoke, and now we'll just get right back out. No punishment. Ferbsa, one of the few players that can do that, on one of the few agents that can do that. Now the aftershock to attempt to pressure him away. That's gate crash number 2 utilized. Now, Ferbs is just like any other duelist with one flash in the tank. But Cubert don't have a guaranteed site. They have a B site that everyone from Sad has eyes locked to. And so we'll head back on around, take this rock and share the other way into Dip's waiting arms. Salvo available to play keep away once you get this opening frag, if you can. But if you can't, Cubert have the site. There's the opening shot. Dip will not choose to fight. Back away. Force Cubert to clear and re-clear Sad. Rocking chair back over to A site. Now comes the breakthrough. Salvo out again to play them back, and everyone's walking through doors, so Sad have easy entry to meet this fight the moment it starts. But Nismo is just better with the opening 2. Make it 3 with the help of Knights. and Cubert will just
30
win
seconds
after
left.
meeting in the middle. That's all you need at the end of the day.
Got the spike.
Yeah, you just walk right into the Cubert train, just cycling around there. And you see Sad just go out one by one out of the smoke, just trying to find an opportunity. But given the number of crosshairs pointed at them as they walk through, Sad not able to find anything. Benji, the last person alive, trying to find a little bit more value out of this round. At least able to get one here, but now the position is going to be known. It's stunned up here, but looking to potentially drop out some more rifles, if not get a couple more ultimate orbs online.
Perhaps one more on the board here. Just so much double checking you have to do, and now that that one swing from Scoob has been revealed, Benji's going to get even more paranoid. Got to focus on it, though. Can at least take care of that one before he'll no doubt get timed out here. Indeed. Down he goes. Cubert takes the lead back. 2 still standing. Guns in the bank. We didn't lose everything. We just got to get back on our feet here.
And if you are Cubert, you know, you gotta take a second here and try to ring in Redux a little bit, because consistently Sad have been checking Redux right off the bat. This is an excellent example of that. But these last rounds, Redux has not really had an opportunity to do too much in this matchup so far. And I think that so far, Sad have just been really doing a great job of keeping that early aggression in check. We talked about how Sentinel's Cubert Academy, the name of their game is play more aggressively. And I mean, you even see them walking all together. They're ready to engage at any single point. They're looking to frag out. And I think that SAD have been using their utility once again to really deter that, which has been very helpful at giving them an advantageous position where they can just play it a little bit smart or allow Ferbsa to really frag out. I mean, Penner, look at the kill feed right now. Ferbsa's got 13. The next highest in the lobby is Nismo with 8, but Benji's second highest on SAD alongside Zerona with only 5. Ferbsa is going off.
Yeah. It's a little hard to talk ball during a technical pause when one of the players has 13 kills, but we make it work. And Cubert will have to, and I think you're onto something there with the fact that Cubert, they still have to be aggressive. They still have to unload. It's just about forcing SAD to overheat, because it's clear their trigger finger's not going to misfire, right? You have to force SAD to either let go of too much on that interception, or you stop. I mean, you stop Ferbsa first of all, but you have to force them to let go of too much, or you have to divert them to the wrong site and force them to overswing. At this point, SAD are going to be ready whenever you decide to press that trigger, but whenever you decide to break out, it doesn't matter when Cubert starts the fight. It matters that SAD finishes it.
And now, Redux playing a little bit more careful here.
Taken out.
It's going to be Benji just hiding out in tower. Already, utility going to be tossed in, so SAD should be aware that this is happening here. Redux going to be going in now, leading the spear as T-Dog gets set up to potentially use that ultimate when the retakers come in, but Benji just a little bit faster.
Waiting for the unload, and now it's SAD that have to initiate, but they're more than happy to. That's why Knights has been watching. Finally, a moment for him to shine, and a rolling thunder to give him an easy third one. Dip, jumping back, still finds the shot. Scuba has to re-up for it, but it creates a 2v1 that should be pretty manageable for Cubert Academy here, especially considering the Ferbsa doesn't have access to any other gun right now, and the man's holding a rifle, or an operator.
Yeah, I mean, Knight's just absolutely popping off, making sure that Cubert is still in this match, and somehow Dip finds just the single bullet. The magnets were in it and takes Knights out. Ferbsa gonna try this, operator in hand. Might potentially just get that timing, just misses it onto T-Dog, but look at the positioning of where Cubert Academy are.
Clear this, so Ferbsa gets an easy dry peek. Position now known, flash now used, decoy now out, Scuba still doesn't buckle. Molly in hand, and counting, knowing that Ferbsa still has that flash too. First tap on the spike, the Scuba extends, spots the hand, but Ferbsa's ready for it, and now he's got a rifle too. Scuba's so much more scared to the point where Ferbs is gonna hold it all the way. Not like this, no! Not like this! Ferbsa wins the fight too! And now we're tied back up.
Oh man, you questioned it, but I wanted to draw attention to where they were playing, because I thought for sure, this guy's got an operator. Let's spread ourselves out. Let's make sure, because that operator has got one shot, and then you're gonna have to see Ferbsa swap weapons, group up, play off of that trade. But instead they decide to split themselves up, watching 2 different angles to try and lock that one down, allowing Ferbsa to find those opportunities of just the 1v1s. Nice little replay here. Knights, we talked about him in the pre-show with how much damage that player can do, but Ferbsa coming up clutch here, finding the win against Scuba, and then being able to steal that round back. Also gets the operator out as well.
very important round going forward here for Sad to try to launch it into a lead, leaving it. Zerona, the early denial. Knights peeks before the smokes go down and doesn't win that fight. Now Zerona hungry, finds Nismo as well on the entry in Arcade. You don't have anywhere else you need to look. Scuba though, with that ultimate, can at least cut the board in half, and Zerona now stranded for his troubles. Sad still on the run back though, and even a wraparound from the north side leads Ferbs and Dip a little late to the party, meaning that Cubert can potentially re-extend a little bit.
Sad has such a good idea on where all these players are. Ferbs gets that first spot out. There should be a nice easy kill.
Yeah, there's that first snipe onto Scuba. Arcade re-cleared. Tuzi now walking on inside as well. Easy down, T-Dog completely zoned out. Yeah, I'd say you have a little bit of room to bully him with 4 standing. So Sad, yeah, what a again, tremendous breakthrough. Zerona heating up there, able to hold back both of those start and pushes. Tremendous work done in that pre-plant to keep it standing.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at how they were going to be moving in onto that site, onto that retake, how Sad were set up, you got Zerona watching out one side. You know you've got spawn control as well. The only questionable place was tower, and so you see 3 agents decide to storm the tower from Sad. And at that point, the only members from Cubert Academy still alive, they had to play onto the site, allowing for that complete pincer mechanic to just come in and suffocate Cubert on that round. Sad Esports, I already knew that it was going to be impressive watching them play with their utility, but right now you're seeing that master class of zoning, just making sure to space out all their utility just enough to clear out which zones they need to in order to push in and isolate kills so easily. And every single time, it seems like Cubert are having a big issue trying to get their way out of all of this utility. It almost looks more annoying than like impactful coming in from Sad, but that's exactly how they want to play that utility. They want to push you into these uncomfortable positions, push you into potentially walking into a little bit of fire to make you lose your life at the end of the round. That's just how Sad want to play. It's not overly aggressive, and it's working great for them.
Yeah, you can see the frustration materializing. Like Cubert Academy are playing one of those mazes you see on the back of the kids menu, but Sad Esports are literally just drawing new dead ends over the map wherever they see Cubert going. I mean, I think isolation, like you said, is the perfect word to describe what Sad is able to do to Cubert Academy right now. And T-Dog, numbers aside, has been the one person that has just been completely locked out fight to fight. Inside a corner, inside a smoke choke, inside whatever Sad is able to craft for themselves. T-Dog has had to use his half of his util kit, half of the rounds, solely to get out only for himself. He hasn't been able to activate Redux nearly as much as he's wanted to. That responsibility has fallen on Nismo 90% of the time so far this game. And unfortunately, Knights lurks just unfortunately have not picked up enough ground. I understand why you would want to put him there. Knights is insane. He is up next. He is the guy to put on the lurk, but he hasn't been able to win any of these crucial fights that are able to actually open up the pushes as heavily as Cubert wants to. It's just none of these puzzle pieces are fully like they got sanded off, and so you can't put the whole puzzle together, but you see where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like David Bowie's Labyrinth. Remember that movie from way back? I might have just dated myself right now.
Oh, brother. That's the one with all the with all the puppets, right? With all the Muppets?
Yeah, with all the puppets and the creepy stuff. Yeah, great movie.
I know that thing.
But like that's kind of how Sad are using it. They're using their utility to really change up some of this free space that Cubert Academy just assumed that they can take. But then, whereas previously with how these agent metas work, if you see a little bit of utility, you can be pretty certain that that agent is going to be there. Tejo really throws a whole mix into that because the guided salvos, you can be anywhere and that guided salvo will still make its way to the destination to zone things out. And that's why when you're talking about Knights' lurks going through, there's so much more room to clear because you're not 100% sure where these Sad players are actually playing on their defense. And if you've been watching the map on how Sad have been splitting themselves up, it varies every single time. They're getting a little bit more creative with how they want to put their defensive agents. And quite frankly, Cubert Academy aren't 100% sure of what the read is simply just because of all of this disruptive utility.
Yeah, it is really hard to get a read on this. Is Ferbs going to be right in front of you, or is Zerona going to wait until 3 people have walked past him to start taking shots? Like, how exactly is Sad going to approach this defense round around in Cubert? They are so much more prepared for like the scrappy fight after they start unloading util that this composition is like giving on the attack. I'm sure that Cubert will have a lot more room to facilitate that from the defensive end, and I'm excited to see how especially T-Dog is able to rise from the ashes on that side. but there's too many variables that Cubert was not prepared to walk into on this attacking half. And Ferbs is half of them, 16-4. Are you joking? Are you joking? And another ult in the tank, operator as well. I mean, you have everything you could ever ask for these last 3 rounds if you're SAT Esports.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too because when you talk about like duelist players, right? We've been really highlighting the Ferbsa versus Redux head-to-head, especially in the pre-show where we're talking about the stat lines and all that type of stuff. Redux is a very aggressive duelist, wants to go in, wants to actively take that space, whereas we see Ferbsa playing a little bit more different, biding time, playing off of information, going for secure kills, and having that escape route available. That's kind of why Yoru has started to kind of pull back a little bit more into this control-ish style of composition with that Seiho, because the Yoru can kind of just teleport around all over the place. And I mean, it's reminiscent of the early days of Chamber, where if you got that operator in hand, you can go for an aggressive peek, take a shot, and then immediately just back yourself out into safety and get set up again. And quite frankly, Ferbs has been doing an excellent job of finding those first bloods, and Cubert Academy are consistently kind of playing into their cards. So at this point, if you are Sentinels, you know, Cubert Academy, the biggest name of the game right now is going to be trying to draw out a lot of that disruptive utility early. And as soon as you see it come out, you got to be ready to storm in onto the site. I think that could really help the disruption in making it a little bit easier for them to take the advantageous fights and making sure to check everything around, because once again, the repositioning of SAT Esports has been fantastic so far.
Yeah, that's such a hard part about this is checking and then rechecking for Cubert Academy, because your pushes are so foot to the floor, 0 to 100, we activate Redux and we go kill. And meanwhile, I mean, Ferbs has just been so self-sufficient. He's just been able to wander off and do all of these stupid things and then TP back and then flash himself out and do all of the things that Redux's incredible Raze lives to have done for him by initiators like Nismo and T-Dog. But again, it's not connecting nearly as often as Ferbs' just ability to completely I mean, this is half the highlight reel right now. This is another 4K from Ferbsa. Here we see.
Like, also too, when you just saw that last replay there, that really emphasizes the point that I'm making, where they're just using utility to force Cubert Academy to be in such weird positions where they can't really retreat, and so Ferbsa just walks away with a 3K. Yeah. Communication going on between SAT Esports is really well, but when we see that actual head-to-head like you talked about, that scrappy fight, I mean, Cubert's got the boxing gloves on, they're ready to throw down into the ring. SAT have just been doing an excellent job of denying that ring from happening.
A lot of that speaks to Tuzi's ability to smoke. We haven't really gotten to speak about him so far this matchup, primarily because he hasn't been fragging nearly as much as he was in his previous match, which, by the way, I think he was top fragging in his previous match. So praises to be sung for sure, but his assists are what he's been racking up so far this game, up to 9 for that matter. And a lot of it is because of, like you said, those smokes that don't necessarily wall out Cubert, but force them to just ask the question, oh, should we fight this now? Should we like fully fight this now? And the answer most of the time has to be yes. Ferbs is too much of an active threat that is right in front of you. If you kill him now, you might win the round. You have that much power in front of you, and they've only gotten that done 4 times. They have only been able to shut that down 4 times. Again, Redux could be activated. You could go B lane pushes these last 3 rounds and just be absolutely so fast, and Knights could hit all his shots, and you could be so good. But yeah, we're just not seeing that full gel that we were hoping for from Q. I mean, when you see this roster, when I saw this roster on Twitter, I was literally like, who photoshopped? Who? Not like who's the social media manager who photoshopped? Who AI photoshopped this? Because this roster this is a fantasy roster. But yeah, it's been so fun to watch.
One of those things, I mean, you're highlighting it now where you're just like, wow, this is like, you know, we're putting together the A team. They're all going to come in here and they're going to be great, which is fair. But at the same time, they need a little bit more time to play together and really solidify their own play style. I think once they're able to get that, we're going to be seeing this be a lot more, but this still feels like they're getting through some of those lower, easier little bumpy phases of a team roster.
Yeah. Still certainly, you know, making that trek to get there. A long way to go, a lot of room to go, and apparently a little more time to wait for round 10. We'll be going to a break real quick while we figure out this technical pause. We'll be right back very soon. All right. We promise we're actually back. Like, legitimately 100% back.
No, I'm worried.
And we have an explanation. We do. Apparently Redux crashed and then got locked out of logging in. So that kind of problem does take a little more time, but luckily powers of B have repaired things, and we are fully back in this game where Cubert Academy is still a round down here on this attack half marks. They have yet to fully decode this sad defense.
Sorry, I'm just getting my stretching out of the way
get
right
settled.
now as we re-get the muscles in your brain working out. We talked a lot about how SAD Esports were specifically really good at using their utility to zone Cubert Academy out. This time around, Cubert Academy have already taken a lot of space. I imagine they're going to have a very easy plant here, and so SAD are just going to have to really focus on that retake. As soon as that spike goes down, Dip immediately trying to take a battle, but is going to be overwhelmed shortly.
And that leaves the spike yet again, so Cubert, they have to speed up the fight a little bit, and they have to send Knights through the tower, but he has spotted this dimensional drift entering Verb, so but can't lock down any shots against the players coming back from mid. Opening things up yet again. Nismo, though, fires back in Canteen, able to force SAD to reconsider as well. Ferbsa will peek back through the stairs, another smoke plopped down there, so that will force him to get through that smoke as well. Meanwhile, Scuba taking the zip down south to try to meet Ferbsa before this push is exacted, but only 23 seconds to go. And Ferbsa's ran like buck, almost the perfect flick, but Scuba's ahead of it. And now it's a 3v2, but with only 17 seconds to go, Cubert have to make this work, and lightning fast. Out we go from the tower, onto the spike to get it planted. Rip Benji, the first one with a sight line, and the frag grenade along with that orbital strike to force Redux away. Barely enough time, though, and still an angle to get the spike down, but the immediate extension leads right into twosies. Sights, now 3 on the board, and in the 1v1 with 5 health to go. But no molly, no stim, just a tap. Nismo, the peek, and the miss. 4 strong for the Brimstone for SAD here, giving him a 6th round here on the defense.
And honestly, what an instrumental pick that we got to see Ferbsa do with that operator, denying the spike plant, and then you can see what the protocol was for SAD. And once again, we talked about this a lot before we had our long tech pause, but SAD prefer to play off of their utility. Play that information game. Don't bother sending your bodies into it until you absolutely must. And that is exactly what we saw afterwards. At that point, you know, that everybody was just kind of hanging back. They have that orbital strike to play off of, make it so much more difficult. And then Tuzi just absolutely clutching things up onto this last kill. Make sure that they get that round. SAD find themselves at 6. Cubert Academy at 4. They do have the showstopper in Redux's hands. We'll have weaponry too coming into this next one, but they got to start pulling things back. Otherwise, SAD are just going to look like they continue to run away with these rounds.
Yeah, Cubert look healthy enough to make this a 6-6 half, but SAD have already done so much damage and could definitely do some more, especially if Ferbsa, holding this operator again, can catch one more of Knights' lurks. Extension, destruction.
Cutting through.
Nothing new on that end. What else you got, Cubert?
Like, it's so easy for Ferbsa. Gets that first pick and then Dip's already there. We talked about the way that they play these agents for map control. And yes, that have complete control of both of these sites thus far. Cubert are the one that have them back off here, try and regroup, figure out a new strategy. Looks like they are going to be pushing into B. Question is, though, how they're going to be able to do this. A lot of Cypher utility available. Thankfully, Redux still has those paint shells. Should be able to destroy some of them. And also, too, just satchel in. Here comes the flood.
Dip is just doing a fantastic job of staying safe, making sure that these salvos can be used at the very bitter end of this push. It is infuriating. Redux on the showstopper, but is blanket away, and Zerona just walks right out to deal with 2. There's the ult gone, there's the raise gone, there's the push gone. SAD, once again, buffer up. And it's a smattering, not even on site. 1v4 is Scuba. Skitters on over to the A site. But it'll be another wrap, no doubt, for SAD Esports. Probably just an orb and then maybe a kill from someone peeking wanton, but that's up to Scuba. And the call is made. Tremendous work from SAD. Yet again, that is another crucial blind from Zerona that is exacted upon by Zorona. Notice that?
And this is the thing too, I mean, as soon as you hear the showstopper voice lines start getting played, SAD are like, yeah, what if we just like didn't do that one this round?
Dude, it's so dumb. Zerona's like, oh, I should fight this.
It's just like immediately the util flood just flies in, completely cuts them in half, so then they can't really do anything. And Zerona, once again, just gunning them down. I think I saw a couple of running Vandal headshots. The spray control, the Crosshair was looking down at their feet and still being able to find the heads. But just such good protocols coming in from Sad. Now Cubert back onto a save. Furbsa immediately flashed out a lot of heavy util from Cubert very early on, just to get a little bit of space. And this is why they're having such a hard time moving into sight. They've got nothing left to move in.
Well, now they have nothing at all. Nismo on that null command, immediately stopped by Benji, who is not on site any longer. Rest of Cubert can make that work, and while they can spray down Nismo, that does mean they have util again. That means Tip can light up a little bit. Cypher ultimate, that'll force the fight from Cubert. They'll just press this and try to get it done the good old-fashioned way. Does a good amount of damage, but still ahead is Sad, and now that Armageddon to deal with the tower. Sad much more secure in their current position with the spike continuing to tick down, but Scuba unfettered with that molly, and that's going to be a whole lot of time wasted by default. Sad have got to get in, and they've got to do it now. Furbsa upstairs. No one's checking Redux! Is there an ace on the table for this Sentinel sixth man? Indeed there is! Great way to end the half for Cubert Academy. A sliver of hope off of its front man.
Switching sides.
I mean, it's been so frustrating for some of those earlier rounds for Redux. Just trying to get active, immediately gets shut down, and then able to slip through the smoke off of just an orbital strike, almost providing cover to go completely unnoticed into the back line. And then at that point, you just line them up and knock them down. Sad did an excellent job onto that retake, but they just weren't being cautious enough to watch into their back line. And so Redux walks away with the ace, not tying us up, but getting us to that 7-5 half, where we're definitely still on winnable territory. Now Sad are going to be the attackers. I'm super curious to see how they want to play off this. When we have that Tejo breach combo coming into it, it tends to be a little bit more blitzkrieggy, a little bit more snowbally. You just rush in, run them down, and displace them, which they've been doing so excellently thus far. And Nismo going to be the person who might make first contact here. Already Sad have started to advance.
Already throwing the knife out, and it's already been destroyed, which means Sad can still completely unload in this opening push. And they do have a good deal to their names. Aron is fully kitted, and that guy is ready to clear angle after angle. It'll be a bit of a stumble here on the pistol round, but Sad will have the shuffle and the cycle to make it work. Benji's still on the lurk watch as well, so Redux cannot extend anymore. And it's all on Cubert to be ready to press that trigger, just as Sad did on their attack. First out from Benji, great hiding spot to catch Redux from behind. And Sad still have yet to move, waiting to see if anybody else gets as hungry as Redux did. And they're right, Nismo extends next. Furbsa takes him down. And Sad have already intricately woven together a tremendous pistol round, but Knights has taken the time to come around to tower. It's a peek that he misses, a crucial one at that, leaving him stranded alone on site. Scuba stuck alone in the smoke, but is good for 2 unwatched. After that fight concludes, Benji can luckily shut that down though, and keep this at a 3v1 standstill with finally 17 seconds to go. Sad to get the spike down with all the security in the world. Make it around to boot. Tuzi with the final frag, and 8-5 on the board here for Sad.
That's so interesting. You saw how Sad played that round. They just tossed out a lot of utility and then immediately just tucked away. And then they look like the meerkats at the beginning of the Lion King opening, where they just pop around corners, just going, hey, surprise, and finding free kills before actually going in on to the site. Also, too, worth mentioning, we see Sad flood in onto the site at like 34 seconds. And so there was a little bit of hesitation there from Cubert Academy, because usually the engagement happens at 30 seconds. And it's just this level of confusion that allows Sad to continue to win these rounds. This time, Cubert going to be a little bit more aggressive. They're already pushing out, exploring a little bit, not able to find any information. Sad, once again, just kind of digging their heels in, taking a little bit of space, but not being overzealous. It's a very patient game from Sad, and it's been working out for them in this map thus far.
Very drag and drop, having an entire setup and then picking up that entire setup and moving house all the way to the other side of the map. It's a composition that so many teams try to master, but it's really hard to slice your util the right way if you're trying to be this fluid between sites. Luckily though, with the introduction of Tejo and how much people have really just started to get on top of these TPs on Yoru, suddenly on this map, some of these compositions have looked remarkably dangerous on two fronts instead of just one at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Benji still has this fortress set up on the north side. And while he's moved to the other end of it, he has done nothing more than just kept Cubert members here waiting to see if he can punish any of them. And it looks like he's about to get to.
Oh, here we go.
Not
It's
again!
an excellent flank, yeah. And now this is going to be so difficult because Cubert have to be cautious about that potential flank. And you see that they're already investing people to try and potentially flush that flanker out.
Now safely able to head back over to that south side to meet up with the rest of the group. And yeah, Cubert, a laundry list to run through on this eco. So it'll be a one and done fight for sure when they break into this. Gizmo with the flash. Everyone's prepped to head on inside. Everyone on SAD gonna go ahead and let their util fly. And Cubert will walk on in for 1 kill. Scuba?
Ah.
Hey, 2 kills. Okay.
Oh. And yeah, Scuba wants to die on that one. So great, good job. A little bit of an interesting one there, but Cubert Academy just doing an understanding that is not going to be a round that you're able to win. So trying to do their best to deny any of the additional kills, not able to do so. Sad immediately realize what's going on, get a little bit more exploratory, get a couple more ultimate points, but this is going to be the round, Tenrek. This is going to be the round. We're seeing now rifles bought up here. On the side of SAD as well, they are going to be investing into this one. So this bonus is not really fully a bonus. There's going to be some rifles here, and that really could make the difference. Benji already spotting out the aggressive defenders, and immediately is just going to be posting up here to potentially catch people off guard.
A full intake of the lurk this time. Cubert sending Manny down to spawn, and this time we check the angle. So far, so good on the bonus for Cubert. Taking a remarkable deal of space, but what do you do with it here, especially when SAD is coming up through arcade the rest of the way? They figured that perhaps there's a drop push, but might have been too fast at this point. So Cubert, they'll start heading on over, and T-Dog, great preventative kill onto Zerona before they can make the push a full reality, and it's because Ferbs is stuck in the 5th dimension. Still messing around here with Knights, who is able to hold his own only once, though. Into tower, SAD Treks. That's all they've got here, and that lets T-Dog Aftershock freely free kill onto Dip as well. Ferbsa forced to scatter away, and now nothing left in the kit. This will indeed be a bonus that goes Cubert's way, one that it looks like they'll have 4 standing for. If Ferbsa doesn't have a dry pee to say about it, Cubert not watching where he's at. That's Scuba's job, and he doesn't do it well enough. Ferbsa still standing, and this is what makes him so terrifying at this point in the game, with numbers like that he's been putting up. Definitely kept it terrifying, but 3 stay standing for Cubert's bonus, 9-6.
And the way that Cubert were really just flushing out tower there. I mean, they look like a Navy SEAL team or something like that. Just such good utility, and then immediately just flushing it out, holding all these different angles, and SAD are the ones this time that get funneled right into an Aftershock. That's so devastating. And once again, it's just these 3 players playing so well together. Look at this. Excellent combination of utility. We talked about SAD doing a good job of that, but Cubert, you know, nothing to sneeze at as well. And SAD this time around, they're doing their best to try and be cautious about the extra aggression that Cubert is kind of showcasing against them. But at the same time, they're taking a little bit too long, and they can't really rely on being able to catch those members of Cubert out in order to initiate their attack. They have to be a little bit more proactive here in order to find some of these kills, potentially get their advantage ready. But Redux is already just trying to hunt this one out.
This is so unorthodox, and Benji has more than enough room to skirt this. Nismo, it was to make sure you guaranteed the one, but they still lost one along the way, and now T-Dog is alone on this site. Can he do it all alone? Looks like he's got a good deal of it. And the A push is locked down. Rest of Cubert, still a little bit of danger befalls them. The smoke will force Redux to stay put a little bit until he can let that ultimate go, and there goes Thuzy. So you've just got Dip alone in this smoke. Pretty obvious where he is from there, and that is a terrific round from, in particular, T-Dog and Redux, but Cubert Academy, they're able to hold it down, get another round of bang.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we swap halves over here, we expect like Sad on the defense. We're just talking about how they're doing a good job of zoning them out and all of that type of stuff. Meanwhile, Cubert on the defense, it's not about slowing them down. It's not about the disruptive plays. It's about just kind of pushing into them and forcing these fights so early on to be able to find what you need and walk away with the round after a couple of kills. It doesn't seem like there's as much care about like, you know, let's stall them out here, let's place the smokes down there. It's about trying to go for that proactive first fight, find your first couple of kills, and then Sad are left a little bit more shaken into their boots, not able to really move up as cleanly as they want to. And Sad trying to hold back a little bit, it's not working out as well as they would want, because now Cubert are just so aware that they're going to be playing these ready angles, and that extra little bit of attention has made sure that Cubert are doing a great job at finding those kills early on.
And they're staying really disciplined on this eco as well, making sure that they don't get hungry for Benji as well. They force that conditioning to get him to do the entering on this lurk, so they get a free kill there. Can trade that out, and Redux.
Down B.
Bit of a playground with this outlaw, of course. Let's see if he gets one more. I mean, it's in the cards. Come on. Now, smoke to force him to get away, but this should be a pretty clean pickup from Cubert to carry into the rest of the half. The momentum is certainly there. The players just still have to be. If Sad pick up a wanton kill here or there, then the eco is still going to look a little dire.
And keep in mind, too, if Dip is the one who gets that spike down, the Armageddon is going to be online.
That's true.
Or, you know, just finds another kill, then there's potential stall here. The Guardian potentially finding a couple of kills could turn this one around, but Cubert, I mean, they look like sharks that have just gotten a little bit of blood in the water. They're circling in and they're ready to move in.
They really do have a purpose this time. We see them. Molly will stall for only so long. Herbs are caught by Scuba on the drop, and that's all the angles trumped.
Oh.
Except for Sight, which Scuba and Redux will take pretty handily. As well, it's a breakout that works splendidly for all except one, the Ignites. Cubert lessen the gap to one round.
It's just that good old honest Valorant that we're seeing Cubert play right now. And it looks so darn good from them. When we talked about it in the first half, about this being like, you know, all the top players coming together, making the super team here, you know, getting those reps so that they can be VCT ready at some point in their futures. Now we're starting to see this. I mean, a lot of those fundamentals just seem so strong. It's when we see Sad disrupt them with the utility, when we see that little bit of uncomfortability, that's when the Cubert plan starts to fall apart. But on this defense so far, they've been really taking initiative. They've been the ones in the driver's seat. They've been the ones putting Sad on the back foot, because Sad just kind of tucked away, relying on that utility is not going to work when you've got like SEAL Team 6 swinging it out onto you and just cleaning up everybody in your spawn. So at this point, Sad taking the time out, which is honestly a really good call if you ask me, because you need to start re-strategizing. What's been going on thus far on this attack has not been working out after these last 3 rounds. We finally got a rifle round here. We've got that Armageddon online, really close to having that Rolling Thunder as well. Let's try and maybe pick up an Ultimate Orb and then engage, because those are really good map control tools.
And there's still this level of fragility to Cubert's defense as well, so perfect time to stop the momentum with the call of that timeout as well, and particularly that is because of Benji's position. Just setting up so much raw util and not approaching will force Cubert to act fast to deal with that, like you said, non-SEAL Team 6 group that's starting their approach. But Sad will, of course, execute another slow crunch, starting from the steps, starting from Arcade, but not a whole lot of extension early on. Going to see if Cubert chomps at the bit here. No doubt Dapper's told them, just cool down a little bit, make sure you continue to respect when they approach, because when they decide to approach, if you've given them nothing up until that point, they're so much weaker.
And it's a slow crawl. Redux in such an annoying position. Nismo as well, just watching off of this off angle, that's going to completely surprise Sad. Redux's position could be good.
Expecting no one to be early in on this orb. Nismo's choke covered, but Redux the one to swing, and both members of Cubert Academy end up finding literally everything they were looking for. Redux is still standing, and in this short little 1v1 with Tuzi, it won't be a 1v1 for long if Tuzi is able to kill Redux before going down, but Luckily, that's probably all Sad will get to say this round. Beast Stare is completely locked out. That's where Dip is. He's the only one remaining, and the Spike is on the other side of the bloody map with 30 seconds to go. This will be one of the cleanest rounds we've seen from Cubert so far this match. It's the kind of clean we expected from them walking into this. Mechanics to a T, and communication really, really solid, bringing that to the forefront here on this defense.
Once again, I think that's just such a fun little angle that we see with Nismo and Redux just ready to go. As soon as they hear the orb being taken, they step out just at the right time, and then they just frag out. I mean, it completely wiped the board of those 4 members. The rest of Cubert can just wrap around in, and Sad can't do a darn thing. Cubert Academy, they've now tied us up 9-9, and honestly do not show any signs of slowing down at all. A lot of ultimates on the board for Sad into this next one, but they don't really have the weaponry where this is going to be a necessary investment until you think that this is a winnable scenario. On the other side, Redux has really started turning things up. One away from getting the the showstopper online here. Once again, it's just that 1-2 swing off. T-Dog there, just a good measure. Those fundamentals, they're just so good from Cubert.
Sorry, just the way that some of the kills look, I was like some source physics that I saw. Tuesday hit real quick. That was really funny.
Source filmmaker at work here, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm getting some nice nostalgia out of this game for more reasons than one. What a fun like great American melting pot of both like new and old gods that both of these teams got, right? Like this is such a fun blend of different eras of Valorant in this region. To see them all come together under such good coaching. It's really fun. Redux opening snipe here. Unfortunately, not as great gatekeeping over on the secondary door, but Nismo has that wall down. And Sad don't really have a push to their name here. No need to let any ultimates go to try and farm some kills. Let's just get to the next round. Please and thank you.
I mean, once again, it's like Sad don't even have a second to pull out any of their utility. They don't even have an opportunity to really do anything. And if we're just coming down to pure aim mechanics, Cubert are going to win every single time. When we talk about that level of talent coming in, we know that all these guys are just absolute fraggers. And now Redux gets the flex the raise. The satchel movement so darn good. Cubert Academy take the lead now. 10-9, 3 more rounds. They might be able to close it out. And they've got a lot of ultimates in their pocket as well.
Look how respectively Redux has caught up to Ferbsa on the kill feed as well. 21-22. Very quietly been racking up this consistency that you continue to see out of a kid who has been playing since apparently out the womb. Like, it's genuinely one of the most mechanical players across this game's lifespan for as long as most of the people watching it can remember. And he continues here on that duelist role, on that 6-man role for the most clouded org in the world. Sad, once again, a crunch on B is the start of the push, but is it where it ends? That's more up to Cubert than Sad, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and look at this. I mean, Cubert are just moving all over the map right now. Sad, they tried to be a little bit proactive on that one. Don't really find anything, and so now they're going to completely move around. The dimensional drift going to be online, get a little bit more information onto this site. There's a lot of trap wires here, though, so this could hopefully be some clean kills coming in from Cubert. That's what they want here if they can get any of them, but Orbital Strike ready to go in Scuba's hand. They're going to deep fry him.
Nice wall out to prevent the plant early on, but it doesn't facilitate a fight because Cubert haven't guaranteed every angle yet. Redux still has to dry clear from the drop.
Oh my goodness.
On sand, now a rolling thunder that Cubert are going to let fly into this site. I mean, they are letting no holds barred going into this fight. Everyone wearing their heart on their sleeve for a fight like this. I mean, no one's really hiding at that point, but Cubert overwhelm and overcome. Still 3 men standing as well, quite impressive. And, you know, some fun, apparently, brotherhood, according to the camera.
It's
wow.
I mean,
you know, if we all just put our guns down and talked about it, then maybe we could have a future like that.
Isn't that easy, huh?
Observer bugs were the first to achieve peace in Valorant's world. But now, I mean, nothing in the tank. Sad chose not to use any counter ultimates for that push. Why?
I mean, quite frankly, that actually was the best case scenario
Yeah,
for
I mean,
them.
you've already been overwhelmed so much. I mean, do you even have time? You even have a window at that point? Because I mean, the move was read immediately. That's why Ferbs had to drift onto site instead of post plant. Because Sentinel, I mean, Cubert was already there. And so, I mean, orbital strike on top of site to stall out. But again, they didn't reopen the fight until after it went down. I mean, it feels like you might have a window there if you're sad, and you might have just missed it. I mean, this late in the game, you might have one more round if your bonus doesn't go well.
I honestly think that it probably was the fact that Ferbsta uses the dimensional drift. If you're sitting in Cubert Academy's roster, you're like, hold on a minute, they've got a lot of ultimates. I bet they're going to use some of them. What if we just strike them with overwhelming fury from the sky?
Yeah, just beat them to the punch.
Exactly. And low key, I wouldn't be surprised if Cubert Academy thought that SAD were going to respond with some of the ultimates of their own. And given the fact that they were poised to win the round anyways, then you know, you get a couple ultimates out of SAD's pockets. It's a lot more easier for you to win this next one. So I actually think that it's probably for the best that SAD held onto all of those ultimates, because you want to use them in a bit more of an advantageous position. Despite the fact that, you know, Cubert Academy, they just tossed everything they had into that bucket. So if SAD are able to find a couple of kills, rescue a couple of rifles, this could be an important thing available to them to start turning it around. But as soon as I say that, Benji's already down.
That's the trouble with like trying to play for the long game, is that we're at the end of the game. So Cubert and SAD don't really have a lot of breathing room after that psychological warfare that they just endured. A timeout called for whatever kind of push doesn't involve Benji, and now make it dip 2. Knights will just dry swing, and this time he'll find a lot more purchase than he did on the attacking end. Knife in to guarantee no one's already entered on site through the stairs to pressure onto Scuba, and it's clean so far. 2Z first step out, good for 1, but the cycle again is very much there for Cubert, as is the entirety of the team. It's pretty clear where the fight's going to start. And at this point, SAD don't seem to have too much more to offer, unfortunately. And okay, we're just having a little bit of fun with it at that point, but good reason, because we're 12-9, and Cubert have just about everything except ultimates here on the table for these 3 opportunities.
Yeah, and I just want to point out a little micro play that I saw there. Ferbsta uses the flash, bounces it off, goes right into the Cypher cage. And as a result of that, none of the members of Cubert got flashed off of that one. And so they just walk in and get completely gunned down. A little bit of unfortunate timing here, but, you know, this is going to be the round. Let's see overwhelming fury from the sky come out from SAD. If they want to pull this one back, that is what they got to do. Those ultimates are not going to benefit you if you lose out this first map. This time around, SAD going a lot faster pace than we're really used to. Benji has not found much success on this flank either, but is going to be exploring a little bit more on Dish side. T-Dog is hanging out on the site. Nismo has an excellent angle here, but Ferbsta already just moving in.
T-Dog has to do a lot of the work here, so Nismo can continue to hold that fight down. Benji's going to win that one actually on Dish, which will actually force the rest of Cubert back a moment as the rest of that Dish push comes back over from North Spawn. But now come the ultimates and the connection into mid. SAD will extend before Cubert can and take this to a 3v3. Spike planted, and SAD very much extended, and they've read this Dish push. Gonna Tejo ult it to force them back at least a bit, but it's a little earlier than one that would get a kill. And Scuba still holding it down in mid. Benji can't win that fight. Stun nade onto Scuba. Not gonna walk around to this. There's too much of a fight to be had on site. The drop down from 2. Dip loses that. It's all on Zerona. One more flash left for this next fight. Scuba's able to dodge it, and now it's a 2v1 that should be handled pretty easily by these 2 veterans of the game. Cubert walks up Zerona. Good for the 1, but Redux finalizes with the shorty, and we'll have just about enough time for Cubert to take the win 13-9. It wasn't enough of the long game for SAD Esports, and thus it will not be enough of a game for them in general. They will have one more shot, but that's all they get.
Yeah, and once again, excellent job from Cubert Academy to pull themselves back up in what was seeming like such a one-sided matchup against SAD Esports. Once again, SAD Esports, they basically didn't let Cubert play the game in that first half, but then as soon as things swap around, I mean, it just looks like Cubert Academy, they really just took the reins into their own 2 hands. Everything was so clean. They were setting themselves off, playing off those crossfires to a C. All of those just basic Valorant fundamentals were so gosh darn good coming out from Cubert Academy.
And I hate to say it, but Sad's playbook on defense or on attack just didn't look as strong as it did on defense. Plain and simple, they just didn't have as much strategies to be able to adapt. There was no adaptation on the conditioning flank that took place with that Cypher on North Spawn for any period during the game. There was a lot of looking for consistency that Sad found in that first half, and they just couldn't find it in that second one. Like you said, Cubert able to do so, and those players really starting to light up the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, a great job coming in from Cubert Academy. Sad Esports, given the fact that both of these teams did win their first matchup, this is still not really a oh no, it's all doom and gloom situation for them. Because, we still have one more map just on the horizon, right, Tenrek?
We certainly do. Pearl is going to be the second map that these two teams face off in. We'll see if it's a 2-0 or if we take it to map 3 in just one moment. Don't go anywhere.
I think I'm getting used to it. They are my team. Some of them I play with college or play in college with, so I know most of them. So it's getting easier to get used to the environment and just overall the competitive scene. I think the stakes feel a bit different, but the competition, honestly, I'm not too nervous really. I think I've always expected myself to play at this level, so I'm not that nervous at all. Key factor for us to keep winning, honestly, just keep improving. I think we've only been together for a week or two now, so every day matters. Every day we put in work, and as long as we keep improving, I know we'll definitely be one of the top teams in Challengers for sure.
Last player standing.